Good evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World News Tonight, live from Warsaw. Elon Musk backed down after sparking a war of words between the heads of Polish and US foreign affairs. This came after reports US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Musk had a row in front of President Donald Trump in the White House. More on that in a moment, but first, the latest headlines. Ukraine and US delegations to begin talks in Saudi Arabia. Germany wants Britain and France to share their nuclear arsenal. And Greenlanders are ready to decide their future. Elon Musk's remarks on the Starlink system in Ukraine have led to a heated debate in social media between him, the Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski, and the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. In the end, the American billionaire stated that he would never turn off Starlink over Ukraine or use it as a bargaining chip. Paweł Trzaskowski has this report.
This is a Starlink terminal on the Ukrainian battlefield. Since the outbreak of the full-scale war, tens of thousands of such devices have been supplying the Ukrainian military and civilians with internet connection. However, as Elon Musk, Starlink's owner, remains an active part of Donald Trump's administration, the future of this support is uncertain.
I literally challenged Putin to one-on-one physical combat over Ukraine, and my Starlink system is the backbone of the Ukrainian army. Their entire front line would collapse if I turned it off. What I am sickened by is years of slaughter in a stalemate that Ukraine will inevitably lose. Anyone who really cares, really thinks and really understands wants the meat grinder to stop. Peace now.
But Starlinks, used among others to operate drones, are not provided to Ukrainians for free. They are being paid for, and the ones who share this burden are Polish taxpayers.
Starlinks for Ukraine are paid for by the Polish Digitization Ministry at the cost of about $50 million per year. The ethics of threatening the victim of aggression apart, if SpaceX proves to be an unreliable provider, we will be forced to look for other suppliers.
This message from the Polish Foreign Minister, however, was met with a harsh response from the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Just making things up. No one has made any threats about cutting Ukraine off from Starlink, and say thank you, because without Starlink, Ukraine would have lost this war long ago, and Russians would be on the border with Poland right now.
The war of words between the heads of Polish and US foreign affairs come after Rubio and Musk were reported to have had a row in front of President Donald Trump. But now Musk and Rubio seem to be in accord again, with the following response of the Starlink owner to the Polish foreign minister.
Be quiet, small man. You pay a tiny fraction of the cost, and there is no substitute for Starlink.
To which Polish foreign minister did not respond, but instead referred directly to his US counterpart.
Thank you, Marco, for confirming that the brave soldiers of Ukraine can count on the vital internet service provided jointly by the US and Poland. Together, Europe and the United States can help Ukraine to achieve a just peace.
And eventually, Elon Musk backed down, clearly stating that Starlink will never turn off its terminals, as Russians can jam all other communications. Turning off Starlink would be a major blow to Kiev, especially that Ukraine has already experienced a number of setbacks since the infamous Oval Office February spat, after which US military aid for Ukraine stopped, and since the US is no longer sharing its satellite imagery with Kiev, Russian heavy airstrikes have intensified, resulting in human casualties.
This is what happens when someone appeases barbarians. More bombs, more aggression, more victims. Another tragic night in Ukraine.
The US administration's appeasement policy towards Moscow was unsuccessful in the past, right before the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
When the Biden administration realized that actually no matter what they could try to do to talk to the Russians' objectives were actually always just raw conquest, they then realized that, okay, we have to make the subsequent strategic adjustments and not talk to them. I think Trump will come to the same conclusion.
However, these conclusions might not materialize until the US-Ukrainian meeting set to be held in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. The Ukrainian delegation will not be represented by Volodymyr Zelensky, but by high-level officials. And the one to hold the talks on the US side is to be Marco Rubio.
As Ukraine's delegation is traveling to Saudi Arabia for another round of negotiations with the US, American media reports that it may take more than the rare earth minerals deal to push forward the peace process. And while Washington puts more pressure on Kyiv, Russian attacks claim more lives of Ukrainian civilians. We're now joined by our Ukraine correspondent, Oskar Terji. Good evening, Os. So what is Kyiv to expect from peace talks in Riyadh?
Well, the biggest thing on the agenda will be this rare earth mineral deal that Volodymyr Zelensky did not sign when he was last in Washington. That will be the key thing that both the Americans and the Ukrainians will be hoping to get out of this, getting this piece of paper signed and done with. However, the problems could be greater for Ukraine, given that NBC News are reporting tonight that the Trump administration doesn't see themselves restoring intelligence sharing or military aid after signing this deal. Now, Fox News reported this about a week ago as well. So this is coming quite strongly out of the White House, this signal that they want more from Ukraine than just signing this mineral deal, including, if the reports are to be believed, giving up territorial concessions, agreeing to territorial concessions. Now, again, this is something that's going to be very, very difficult for the Ukrainians to agree to, not just the government's position on this, but the view of the people. Zelensky at the start of this said that any kind of agreement would need to be put to the people in some sort of referendum. So this is going to be very, very difficult to achieve. And that's to say that the Russians will agree to any concessions of their own. There's still no word on what concessions the Trump administration is trying to get out of Russia. It seems to be all targeted towards Ukraine at the moment. And as you said, that is having a cost in lives, as these continuous missile and drone strikes have escalated in recent days. And many, many civilians have been killed as a result over the last 4 or 5 days alone, several dozen. So it's a difficult situation for Ukraine to be in. Now, elsewhere in the Ukrainian-occupied region of Kursk, the Ukrainians have had more difficulties, more setbacks. The Ukrainian General Staff reporting that a group of Russian special forces tried to infiltrate Sudzha, the town in Ukrainian-occupied Kursk region. They report heavy losses on the Russian side, and they say that infiltration was thwarted. They tried to enter through a gas pipeline. However, they have had more setbacks in the Kursk region, with Deep State, the Ukraine-based military analysts, saying that they suffered quite significant setbacks, and their forces have been forced to withdraw from several areas in the Kursk region. So the Ukrainian forces are now starting to face the difficulties posed by this lack of intelligence sharing. We're seeing that happen in real time on our screens. Ukraine will be hoping that this meeting in Saudi Arabia will repair those rifts and work some way to restoring that vital information that Ukraine needs to prosecute this war. But all to play for in Saudi Arabia this week.
That was Oskar Terji reporting from Kyiv. Thank you very much, Oz, and stay safe. As the EU launches its grand plan of rearming Europe in the face of a growing Russian threat, no option seems currently off the table. Germany wants France and its British allies to share their nuclear weapons in order to strengthen the already existing American nuclear shield. Gabriela Fesnak reports.
Germany has been bound to non-nuclear defense since the end of World War II. But now soon-to-be Chancellor Friedrich Merz wants the European nuclear powers to share their weapons and boost the US nuclear shield.
Sharing nuclear weapons is an issue that we need to talk about. We have to become stronger together in nuclear deterrence. We should talk with both France and Britain, always also from the perspective of supplementing the American nuclear shield, which we of course want to see maintained.
In an exclusive interview with TVP World, former Slovakian Defense Minister Martin Sklenar stressed that nuclear deterrence is key to maintaining stability in Europe.
This is critical. The discussion about nuclear must be part of the European defense discussion if Europe really wants to create not only a strong defense but also a deterrent force. That is the basis that has been the basis for peaceful living in Europe. for the past more than 7 decades.
According to experts, the French nuclear arsenal was created as a safety measure should the US cease to provide its nuclear umbrella.
The Europeans and also the French considered an alternative option. The French had a nuclear weapons program. They forced the FRAP only because of this, because they didn't trust the US.
Earlier this week, European leaders agreed to spend more on defense in order to deter Russia from attacking another European country, now that the US is no longer a reliable ally. The theme of strengthening European defense was one of the key points of Ursula von der Leyen's speech marking the first 100 days of her second term as the President of the European Commission.
We will drive the Rearm Europe plan forward with full force. The idea behind it is we must unleash the full potential in the face of concrete threats.
Von der Leyen's speech also addressed the shift in Washington's policy towards Europe.
What has changed in these 100 days is the new sense of urgency. Because something fundamental has shifted. Everything has become transactional. So the pace of change has accelerated, and the action that is needed has to be bold and determined.
With the second Trump presidency seemingly more unpredictable than the first one, the future of Europe's close military cooperation with the US remains uncertain.
The threat of a military confrontation between NATO and Russia in Europe has prompted Polish authorities to build and modernize bomb shelters around the country. The latest data shows that only a small fraction of the Polish population would find an underground refuge in case of war. Anastasia Janczenko has been following the Polish civil defense preparations.
In Poznan, the construction of new underground shelters has been announced as part of the new law aimed at enhancing protective measures for citizens. The city's mayor, Jacek Jaśkowiak, reported that 3 new shelters will soon be established. These facilities are designed to protect civilians in case of military conflict, including aerial bombardment. Currently, Poznan's shelters can accommodate around 40,000 people. Further shelters will be integrated into new construction projects. Over the next 5 years, developers will be required to include protective infrastructure in their buildings.
I will push for underground parking facilities to be incorporated into new buildings.
These parking structures would be specially reinforced and equipped with sanitation facilities, allowing them to serve as emergency shelters. The city hopes to collaborate with developers, similar to previous agreements that ensure the construction of sidewalks and roads.
I'm convinced that developers offering apartments with built-in shelters will create an additional value that could be a key factor for buyers when choosing a property.
Throughout the country, authorities are focusing on strengthening civil defense infrastructure, including the construction and modernization of bomb shelters. At the end of 2024, Polish President Andrzej Duda signed a new government law on civil protection and defense, which came into effect at the beginning of 2025. The new Act on Civil Protection and Civil Defense is based on key tasks aimed at ensuring the safety of citizens in emergency situations. Its development aims to ensure full preparedness for responding appropriately in the event of war or martial law. It includes ensuring access to water and food, ensuring access to medicinal products and providing first aid and healthcare services, supporting the implementation of rescue tasks, ensuring notification, warning, and alarm systems for the population, ensuring security and public order, ensuring communication with authorities and entities responsible for civil protection. Special attention is being given to Warsaw, where authorities have launched the Warsaw Protects program. As part of this initiative, approximately €28 million has been allocated for the construction and modernization of shelters and bunkers in the coming years.
So first and foremost, the organization of shelters, as well as issues related to additional electricity connections and alternative water sources. Additionally, the creation of a storage base and a flood protection warehouse, where all the necessary equipment for various contingencies will be stored.
Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski noted that the city has around 7 million square meters of space potentially suitable for shelter adaptation, including underground parking lots and metro stations. According to the latest data from the Polish Ministry of Interior and Administration, there are currently around 62,000 shelters in Poland, capable of accommodating 1.3 million people. With a population of over 37 million, this means that only 1 in 30 citizens would have access to shelter in case of emergency. The issue is not just the number of shelters, but also the public's lack of awareness regarding their location and accessibility. In an emergency, quick evacuation could be a matter of survival.
There's bunkers nearby, but I wouldn't know where.
Where is the nearest shelter? Honestly, I have no idea.
Security is becoming an increasingly urgent issue, and the steps being taken show the country's commitment to being prepared for any challenges.
And now let's move on to Greenland, as the semi-autonomous Danish island is about to conduct the most important vote in its history. Greenlanders will decide on Tuesday the future of the strategically important land, as Donald Trump is trying to convince them to join the US. Sonia Gatabishchan reports from Nuuk.
The parliamentary elections in Greenland are fast approaching. With the rich cultural heritage and resurfacing talks of independence, the Greenlandic population is eager to carve out a future that reflects both their unique identity and values.
I think depending on which party gets the most elections, if we win, we want to secure our sovereign nation, that we have our own democracy that we fought for, and we don't want to be Americans, but we want to stay Greenlandic and stay focused on our way to make our own government and independence.
With Greenland being a self-governing territory of Denmark, one wonders what would be the price of its independence. The former finance minister gave us some clarity on that.
There are many different kinds of independence, but when it comes to the financial independence, I think what we are looking at is that we have to develop other sectors than only the seafood. We cannot be so dependent on only one sector within the economy. So that's why I stress that we need to actually focus on natural resources, but also tourism.
Greenland has been receiving a lot of attention lately, particularly due to President Donald Trump's interest in this Arctic island. However, at the heart of this land are its people, the cornerstone of its identity.
We come from the indigenous population called Inuit that lives across the Arctic. The difference between other indigenous populations around the world is that we are actually the majority. So 90% of the population living in Greenland are born in Greenland.
One of the indigenous people is Ivalushkivte Lavensen, who uses her talent to promote Greenlandic identity and empower those that wear her jewelry.
I use reindeer spine, the disc in between the spine. And I use fox fur and pearls. I think also with this, using the spine is the first thing that develop in the womb. So it's our first strength and our fundament.
Greenland is rich in a variety of resources such as minerals, oil, and natural gas, making it an attractive target for a variety of foreign nations looking to capitalize on its natural wealth. However, in conversation with us, the Greenlandic member of the Danish parliament emphasized that perhaps one resource is more important than all the others.
I would say the people of Greenland is the most important resource that we have, and especially our young people. I think it's really about nurturing the potential of the young people here in Greenland in order to make sure that we can stand even stronger on our own in the future.
Greenland has a population of approximately 56,000 people, with the majority of them identifying as ethnically Greenlandic. Greenlanders will cast their votes in the parliamentary elections on 11th of March. From Nuuk, for TVP World, Sonia Gatabishchan.
Polish athletes can finally celebrate as the 2025 European Athletics Indoor Championships in the Dutch city of Apeldoorn have come to an end. Poland has been classified 5th in the overall medal table, as Poles will take 4 medals back home.
Just ahead of the close of the 2025 European Athletics Indoor Championships in Apeldoorn, Netherlands, Anna Wielgosz managed to scoop up Poland's 4th medal in this year's games. In Sunday's 800-meter women's race, she finished in 2 minutes, 2.09 seconds, leaving France's Clara Lieberman and champion Anita Horvat of Slovenia 0 chance. Her medal brought Poland up to 5th place in the overall medal rankings. First place this year went to the hosts, the Netherlands, who were followed by Norway and Switzerland. Of the remaining 3 medals, on Friday, Jakub Szymański took gold in the men's 60-meter hurdles against France's Wilhelm Belocian and Jusquau Matei. The Pole, who was the favorite coming into the race, withstood the pressure and became the European champion with a time of 7.43 seconds after an excellent sprint to the finish line. And then on the same day, during the women's 60-meter hurdles, Poland's Pia Krzyszowska took bronze. The winner, Switzerland Ditaji Kambunji, in just 7.67 seconds, beat Dutch home favorite Nadine Visser and broke the European record, unbeaten since 1981.
I knew exactly that it would take fast times. I knew that Nadine Visser would give her all at home, and that's why I'm so happy.
The following day, we saw this thriller of a race where Poland's Maksymilian Szwed took silver, clocking in a time of 45.31 seconds, improving the previous Polish record of Marek Plawgo, and also setting the European under-23 record. He was slightly edged out, however, by Hungary's Attila Molnar, who took gold with a time of 45.25 seconds. Frenchman Jimmy Sudril took home the bronze. The European Athletics Indoor Championships were first held in Vienna in 1970, replacing the European Indoor Games, its predecessor event that started in 1966. If we look at the all-time top medal winners in the event's history, we see that Poland takes the 4th spot, but we can also see how much things have changed in Europe since 1966. 3 of the leaders, the USSR as well as East and West Germany, are no longer with us. This is a biennial event. The next championships will be held in 2027 in Valencia, Spain.
A heated debate between Polish and American officials took place on the X platform today over the future of Starlink internet system in Ukraine. It happened on the eve of the US-Ukraine negotiations in Riyadh and amid the ongoing Russian attacks against Ukrainian civilians. And to talk about it, we're joined by Colonel Dr. Zdzisław Śliwa, Dean of the Baltic Defense College. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for inviting.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. Now, before we start our conversation, I'd like to remind our viewers what's the whole fuss about. So, Elon Musk wrote on X, Starlink system is the backbone of the Ukrainian army. The entire front line would collapse if I turned it off. Now, to this, Radosław Sikorski replies, Starlinks for Ukraine are paid for by the Polish Digitization Ministry at a cost of about $50 million per year. The ethics of threatening the victim of aggression apart, if SpaceX proves to be an unreliable provider, we will be forced to look for other suppliers. And the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, responds to these words by writing, just making things up. No one has made any threats about cutting Ukraine off from Starlink, and say thank you, because without Starlink, Ukraine would have lost this war long ago, and the Russians would be on the border with Poland now. Now, this is very much the sort of a narrative we've heard in the Oval Office during Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington. Now, why is it repeated towards Moscow?
Thank you very much for reminding key messages which were presented in those tweets. The first, for me, the tweet from our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Sikorski, it was just a reflection of reality. There was no aggressive in the text. It was really very polite political message saying there's something wrong. And it was also preceded with a tweet from Musk. Elon Musk clearly stated that it could be out, Starlink could be out. At the same time, those tweets, they happened after last messages from US administration. First of all, the decision to stop military support to Ukraine. The next, we got a shortage of military intelligence to Ukraine. So I think Mr. Musk's message, it was just another step which could be implemented. I think on the other side, from Russian side, from the US side, the answer was very aggressive from both Mr. Rubio, but also especially from Elon Musk, who reflected not so diplomatic way. And one more point, the tweet by Minister Sikorski, it was not related to political leadership of US. It was related to Elon Musk, who is not representing politics in this point. So I do not understand why it was so huge debate about that, because again, Minister Sikorski just reflected reality, because what could happen after Starlink would be. I had the pleasure to talk with Ukrainian officers in my military service, in my service here in Baltic Defense College, and Starlink is playing significant role. Without that, some precise weapon system cannot be used. So I think it is a little too much.
Precisely, but Colonel, is the US still a reliable arms provider for Europe if they can remotely just switch it off, just as Elon Musk threatened to do with the Starlink system, though it is not a military equipment per se? Now, should we buy more jets from the US if they can be turned off remotely from Washington?
I think you raised quite significant and very dangerous aspect of military security in general, sir. Yes, you are totally right. The point is that Europe and of course Poland is using also US hardware, like you mentioned, F-16. We have also tanks. We have also weapon systems, weapon platforms, which are using ammunition which could be procured only from the United States. So any shortage in that sense could be a big challenge, because having platforms without ability to use it, it could be definitely military disaster. On the other hand, I still think that US is a reliable partner. The point is that we have not so many chances in that sense. US is still the most important, the most powerful member of NATO in that sense. And Poland has already presented for a few times that transatlantic relations are important from Polish side. And also when you heard maybe when Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, was talking about Mr. Trump, he mentioned a very nice political statement. He mentioned about good relations. There is no will from NATO and Poland side to antagonize US. Even Vice President Vance, when he was in Poland, he praised Poland for 5%, which is US request toward European NATO members. At the same time, President Duda also visited United States, one of first leaders from Europe.
Absolutely. Now, Marco Rubio is traveling to Saudi Arabia tomorrow to meet with his Ukrainian counterpart, Andriy Sybiha. Now, NBC News reports that it may take much more than just the sheer rare earth minerals deal to push on with the peace negotiations. Now, Ukraine is apparently also to accept territorial concessions to Russia and to conduct elections. Now, how would you comment on these reports if they prove to be true?
Sir, I think you mentioned a very key word in your statement, the word which is deal. The point is that we have too many words connected with deal. Economic deal, military deal, but we are talking about security. We are talking about reliability of relations and also stability of Europe and also Ukraine. The word deal is making a kind of, like with economy, we have tariffs, one day they are in, next day they are out. What about stability? What about predictability? And of course, Ukraine is now under pressure, because after that famous meeting on Friday last week, week before, it was like Ukraine has now no choice. At the same time, we do not know what is behind closed door. It was top level, presidential level, but we do not know what happened at lower level, ministerial level, chief of defense level. It's not clear if it happened, but definitely it is shaping. And of course, a deal connected with natural resources. It is something what is important. At the same time, remember, President Trump was happy to finish in 24 hours war in Ukraine. He was happy to finish Middle East struggle between Hamas and Israel. Nothing happened for now. He needs also success, but that is putting
maybe this success will come next week. Who knows? The future will tell. Colonel Dr. Zdzisław Śliwa, Dean of the Baltic Defense College, was our guest tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for inviting. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more news and features here on TVP World.